Organizers of this year's conference. This is my third year organizing the conference, and I really believe that this event is getting better and better every year. This year we have the wonderful Lauren Faber O'Connor here gracing us with her talk on the last day of her maternity leave. And we are also really proud to say that every single one of our panelists is an alumnus from one of the 5 Claremont colleges, so we're really happy to have that as well. The REC would also like to thank the career offices and sustainability offices of the other 4 Claremont colleges for their help in planning and coordinating this year's panelists. I'm happy to introduce our keynote speaker this year, Lauren Faber O'Connor, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer for the City of Los Angeles. As CSO, she's driving the implementation of LA's Sustainable City Plan, which was released in April of 2015. Prior to joining the Garcetti administration, Lauren served as the West Coast Political Director for the Environmental Defense Fund for 4 years. In 2010, she was appointed to Assistant Secretary for Climate Change Programs at the California EPA, where she was dedicated to the design and implementation of California's landmark Global Warming Solutions Act, AB 32. Lauren serves on the board of the California League of Conservation Voters and the U.S. Department of Energy State Energy Advisory Board. She holds a bachelor's degree in Earth Systems and Economics from Stanford and a master's degree in Climate and Society from Columbia. After her talk, we'll have time for audience questions, and as always, photography and recording are prohibited. Please join me in welcoming Lauren Faber O'Connor to the Athenaeum stage.
Thank you all so much for welcoming me here today and for letting me sneak in as a non-alum, so I appreciate that. But I have come to know CMC a lot more since I moved back to Los Angeles a few years ago, and it's just, every time I come here, I just love it. I love the students, the campus is absolutely amazing, and the work that you all are doing and the opportunities that the colleges provide, it's really exciting. So you all are in a really great place, and thank you for letting me be a part of it. I also, I want to thank the student organizers, and Lauren in particular, for not just inviting me here, but for really dedicating yourself to putting on a conference like this over the last few years and making this an annual thing, because I'm biased, but I think this is an incredibly important area for us to be working in and for us to grow our community of young people getting involved and seeing all the different ways that you can get involved and sort of have a green career. So starting now and piquing people's interest and getting exposed to different opportunities is just exactly what we should be doing. So thank you so much for putting this on. It seems like a fantastic conference. So I'll talk to you guys a little bit about kind of my perspective on getting into environmental careers and sort of some paths, and as well as tell you a little bit about my own path, which is but one path. And kind of want to leave you with a few key takeaways, which I'll sort of give away now. One is that you don't necessarily have to feel that you're limiting yourself as you're going into, what kind of, should I go into science or policy, or should I go into communications and marketing or technology? What's so exciting about this career, this type of vocation, is that, especially nowadays, it has grown in every single direction you can imagine. It is its own ecosystem, all coming together, and all different expertise needing each other to find these lasting solutions for people, for our planet. And so, as you think about what areas you're good at, what areas you're passionate about, know that you're not sort of cutting yourself off to other opportunities. It really is limitless. So when you're thinking about, am I interested in policy? Am I interested in nonprofit world and advocacy or urban planning, international development? Do I want to, work, as I said, in technology and entrepreneurship? Go work for an elected official or go run for office yourself? You need all of these people to be successful, and so you will continue to cross paths and not really cut yourself off from any of these opportunities. Continued exposure. So that's one thing that was always really exciting and gratifying for me as I was working in one area, is that I know that I'm constantly working with and learning from other experts, scientists, academics, researchers, all across the spectrum to succeed in my own work. So that's one area that I think is really exciting. And the other kind of takeaway, perhaps maybe a little more immediately applicable, is that, so how many freshmen do we have in the room? Okay, and sophomores? Juniors? Seniors? Okay. So as you all are moving through, thank you for the interaction there too. As you all are moving through college and you're thinking about kind of what's next, what am I doing this semester, what am I doing this quarter, or summer rather, I was on the quarter system, and what am I doing after undergrad, take those opportunities really seriously. These internships that people, that you start looking for and applying for, or abroad opportunities, each of those have a really, really special place in your path. And to the extent that you take them seriously and you soak up everything you can, at least what I have found is in the internships where I really connected with either my supervisor or someone, folks in the office, and I kept in touch with people, to the T, those internships and those relationships have influenced my path. No question about it. Where I kind of pieced out on an internship and didn't really keep in touch, those are ones that didn't really have that much of an influence. They didn't really kind of change the way I thought about my career or thought about environmental issues, and they certainly didn't kind of help steer me down the line. And so I really, really want you all to think about when you're dedicating a summer, a semester to work, you're working maybe for free or for very low pay, know that there are still really amazing things that you can get out of it, and don't be afraid to stay in touch with people and to go back and ask for advice, ask for feedback. Hey, I'm sort of thinking about this organization or this grad school. Ask people for advice. They know that they're investing in you as much as you've invested your summer or some period of time with them. So don't be afraid or don't forget that those are real relationships and networks and opportunities to keep coming back to, because they really can influence your path. So those are kind of the things that I want to make sure, these are not just people who are going to write you a letter of recommendation, but really want to see you succeed and potentially, bring you back or have you in mind as they're thinking about other opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about trajectories and how, I'm sure folks here are thinking about how do I get from point A to point B. And one thing that I look back and realize, and I think still live by today, is that my point B, my end goal, keeps changing. As you learn more things and you get involved in more areas, you get exposed to different subject matter, your point B will change. So you don't necessarily have all the answers as you're starting out, but to have a sense of what you're excited about and what initial paths you want to pursue, what organizations or entities you might be interested in getting more involved in, great. But be open to new things that might come in front of you, to kind of that right turn that you weren't expecting and say, oh gosh, maybe I should go there. Maybe I should leave what I'm doing in this role and go try this out. Because one thing, you can always go back. If you're in the solar industry and you're really passionate about, increasing the adoption of solar, either, in your community or internationally, and then this other opportunity comes your way, speaking in a total hypothetical here, to maybe go work on a campaign or to work in a local community project, and you think, oh, but I'm doing really well in this job, think openly that you might want to take a little right turn and try it out, because you can always go back. You're not closing off an opportunity. If it's something that you're really passionate about and you want to go back to it, do it. But you'll be glad, I think, that you at least gave it a shot, that you tried it out, you got exposed to new things, you made new relationships, you learned new things and met new people, and that will stay with you, whether you continue down that path or you go back to something that you were working on before. So again, be really open-minded to things that come in front of you that you weren't necessarily expecting. If I were to go back to my, Lauren senior in college me and say, where am I going to be in 15 years, I would never have guessed this. Never. Not my point B, not where I am today, and certainly not how I got there. So it's really exciting and gratifying to kind of look back and go, that was kind of cool. That was not at all what I was expecting to happen. Generally, I'm interested in policy, and I've been working in policy development, but where and how and on what subjects during what times, couldn't have predicted. And so I kind of look back and think really that it's kind of exciting that you don't need to overplan, it's really important to have a sense of what you like and maybe what you don't like, and internships can really help with that. it's great to get exposed to different, private sector, public sector, so on, and go, maybe I don't really like that, but you checked it off the list and you don't have to worry about that anymore. And that's great. I've had internships that I didn't love, and now I know, hey, I don't have to go apply for a job in that area or that organization again, but I'm really glad I know that, And so just think about what types of opportunities you want to expose yourself to. Now, my trajectory a little bit about. So as Lauren said, I graduated from Stanford and was thinking actually right about graduate school right after school. And there are pros and cons to going to graduate school right after school, and I don't think there's a right and a wrong. So as you all are thinking about that, my advice is I don't think there's a right and a wrong. But certainly getting some experience in between if you're not sure what kind of graduate degree you might want to pursue if you want to pursue that. Although I will say that in the professional world, having a graduate degree does help. It's very competitive out there, and it does help. And so when you're thinking about it, don't just go to grad school for getting the degree and checking that off, the MA, the MS, the BA, whatever it may be. But really think this is a unique, special time, a once in a lifetime. I mean, grad school, like college, are these special kind of moments in life that you'll never get to live in a dorm and have, a schedule and folks looking out for you like your faculty and advisors. This is a very unique time. So when you're thinking about grad school, think about the same thing. Who do I want to expose myself to? I ended up going to, across the country to Columbia, which at the time, I didn't really necessarily think that strategically about. I thought it was a program I was really interested in, and they were interested in me because it was a brand new program. But when I look back, what I'm really glad ended up happening is that by having an undergrad degree on the West Coast and a graduate degree on the East Coast, I ended up getting exposed to opportunities and networks that were really different between the two. On the West Coast, a lot of the contacts, the job opportunities, the fellowships, they were very California focused, which is great for an environmental career. Absolutely great. I mean, you're at the forefront. You are getting way at the head of the curve when you're working in California. On the East Coast, a lot of what we were getting exposed to in New York was New York, Washington, D.C., and international. And I hadn't really been exposed to international issues as much in undergrad, and really starting to understand more how, climate change, which was my passion and continues to be, is an international issue that does require a global solution. And that was sort of the mindset that I had when I left grad school. I thought, I need to work internationally. That's what I want to do. That's my passion. And so I went to work somewhat internationally in Washington, D.C., but for the British Embassy. And this was something, I didn't even know that was a thing when I was in school, to go work for an embassy, to go work on policy for a foreign government. It was a faux diplomat, really, was what ended up happening. And I, again, could have never in a million years have predicted something like that. But what happened was, a professor of mine in grad school saw that I was really interested in climate and clean energy policy. There weren't a lot of examples to pull from in the US at the time. And so we ended up really, looking internationally, and I learned a lot about what was happening in the UK at the time. And she said, you seem really interested in British policy. And I thought, okay, I didn't really think of it that way, but I guess I am, because they really were leading on climate policy. And she goes, well, you should talk to the folks at the British Embassy in Washington, D.C. And I thought, why? And so just kind of struck up that virtual relationship over the phone and over email. I want to learn more about your work. And there happened to be an opportunity that opened up right out of grad school, and it was just a 6-month posting, a 6-month job at the British Embassy, and they, were looking for someone kind of early career, and I thought, 6 months, I'm going to move all the way to DC. I mean, that's a little bit scary, but who knows? Maybe it'll turn into something else. Maybe if I, make myself indispensable, they'll want to keep me. Who knows? But it worked out, and I was there for 5.5 years, and I was promoted within, to be an American, promoted within the British system. Very odd, but it was such an exciting experience. And, even my parents were kind of thinking, what's she doing out there? And so taking that chance I think was really an exciting launching pad. And, you will find that version of it. But, I think there was a little bit of, I knew I wanted to be in Washington, D.C. I knew that if it worked for just 6 months, this is where I wanted to be anyway, because I wanted to work in policy and I wanted to work in national and international environmental policy. So why not? Let's give it a shot. And so after that time, which was, I look back so fondly on that time, I was thinking, okay, what next? I'm kind of at a point in my career where I should probably maybe make a move, and that's really a personal choice. You don't necessarily have to move from job to job to job. But after that time, I thought, I've been working with this organization. It's a consulting firm that works with a lot of clients that I really admire and want to get a chance to work with. And so I went to the private sector and I started consulting and had really cool clients in the business space and the nonprofit space. We were all focused on getting a national climate and clean energy policy for the U.S. And so if you've studied some of that, this was during the Waxman-Markey bill, which is a big cap and trade bill that was considered in Congress and actually passed by the House of Representatives and didn't make it into the Senate. And then the Senate counterpart, Carrie Graham-Lieberman, or Carrie Graham-Boxer, really at that point. So I got to work on those, but from a consulting standpoint. And I'll tell you, I didn't love it. It wasn't really my favorite thing. I was interested in the type of work, but not necessarily consulting. So I thought, okay, not for me, but I'm really glad that I tried it, and it gave me a chance to build relationships with these different clients, again, in international businesses, and national businesses, and nonprofits. And so that was great exposure, but I didn't love it. And so I was kind of, keeping my eyes and ears open, and that's when an opportunity popped up to go back to California to work for Governor Schwarzenegger. And again, I thought I was a DC lifer. I mean, I loved and love still Washington, D.C. I didn't want to go back at least I wasn't ready, I thought, to go back to California. But I did think that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because of where California was in terms of leadership on climate change. And we were, just at the point of finishing up the design of California's cap and trade program. AB 32 had already been passed, and that happened while I was at the British Embassy, and it was very exciting because Governor Schwarzenegger and Prime Minister Blair had a very loving relationship, and we got to collaborate a lot on climate change. And that's how I built this relationship with the Schwarzenegger administration, was through working for the British government. So again, how these things happen, And so I didn't think that I was really ready to go back to California, but I did think it was a really important opportunity that would be really fulfilling a passion and also be a launching pad because Governor Schwarzenegger only had 1 year left in office. So I thought to go be an appointee for someone who has 1 year left in office, that's kind of risky, but okay. So I moved to Sacramento and was able to, have such a fulfilling year of working on the cap and trade program, working on international deforestation issues that the governor was really interested in, and travel abroad on tackling deforestation with other forested subnational governments. And was able to stay on when Jerry Brown was elected. But again, you don't know what the outcome of an election is. So that was a little bit risky, but went for it. And because I wasn't sure what Governor Brown wanted to do when he came in, he can do whatever he wants with pre-existing appointees. I kind of thought I got to look around and see what else is around in case he's got someone else he wants to put in my position, which is entirely possible. As it turns out, he didn't, but I had already accepted a job. And so I joined Environmental Defense Fund. But again, EDF was an organization that first I worked for as an intern in New York when I was in grad school. And so I had already sort of developed this understanding of how EDF worked and what EDF was all about, and built some relationships, of course, in the New York office. And when I got to California, EDF was a big player on California climate change policy from an advocacy standpoint. They're bringing their expertise to bear. So I was really excited to go back to EDF. And that's what I did. And I think it was a wonderful experience because it allowed me to still focus on policy, but kind of do it from a lobbying and advocacy standpoint and expose myself to other areas like working with the legislature, which I hadn't really done before. And what that did was that brought me kind of around the state. And I ended up spending more time in Los Angeles getting to know the elected officials in LA as part of my job, as part of the political director, and realizing how awesome LA is. And I had kind of not realized that. And I had spent so much of my upbringing going, LA is not going to be the place where I can have an environmental career. And probably at the time that was true, but I hadn't spent that much time re-examining LA and seeing the growth in the sustainability community in the region. And I would go down there for work and visit family, and it was great. And I have this great time. I'd feel really fulfilled professionally, fulfilled personally, being around family. And I thought, gosh, I might love LA again, which I never would have thought LA would be my point B. Never. And so I kind of just had that in mind and was always looking for opportunities to do work in LA as part of my work with EDF and expand our reach, which was really welcomed. And that's how I got to know the folks in the Garcetti administration. And so that's, long story short, how I ended up, being asked to join the administration. And, to be back in Los Angeles, to have left grad school saying, I need to work in international environmental policy, international climate change policy. I want to work on the UN negotiations, and that's where it's at, to now working for the second largest city in the country on climate change policy, on building a sustainable environment, and being an international leader in doing so. That is, to me, a really, for my own self, a fascinating trajectory to have come back home. And who knows? I may go off again, and I'm not closing any doors, and no is not really a word I like to use often, but right now it really is an exciting and important place to be, and I feel like the really roundabout way that I took to get here actually makes a ton of sense to me. And so I'm happy to kind of think through that and tease that out more with you all, but it's just one example of kind of going in and out of different types of careers. I thought a lot about, do I need to go to law school? Should I go work for a solar company or a battery company? And these companies are doing such amazing things. But in my job today, I have to work with all of them. They are such important stakeholders. So a little bit about what I'm doing, and I didn't bring a watch up here with me, so how am I doing on time? Unless is it 12:37 right now? Is this an actual, okay, so this is not a clock. So, really? Okay, then I will use this. So in my job today, in order to be successful, I have to work with such a broad array of stakeholders, most of whom are very supportive of the work that we're doing, but some of whom are very skeptical of the work that we're doing. And so to build up that kind of expertise in not just the work, but understanding where different people are coming from as you're trying to work successfully in whatever arena you are in is really important. And so again, when I look at the array of opportunities that you all have to get involved, I am just within city government. We're in the mayor's office, okay, but in order to get my job done in sustainability and in delivering the mayor's sustainable city plan, I'm working with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power on their clean energy work and their water conservation and water recycling work, with the Bureau of Sanitation on recycling, on composting. They do a lot of work on wastewater as well, with our Department of Transportation, who are building out our electric vehicle bus fleet and working on expanding our electric vehicle car share programs and autonomous vehicle programs. These are all things that are really there to implement the mayor's sustainability vision. And then you start going into other parts of government that are perhaps a little bit more unconventional when it comes to sustainability. Our Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, working with their fleet managers, rather than replacing their vehicles, not the pursuit vehicles, but their other non-pursuit vehicles with the same big gas-guzzling cars, We have a fleet of over 200 electric vehicles. Most of them are BMW i3s. And that's because they came in and with, the best bid. And so, although people are like, oh, wow, BMWs for city government, but they actually were the lowest cost. And so we've got a bunch of BMWs, we've got a bunch of Nissan Leafs, and the fleet managers, the guys that are used to these big Crown Vics and these other, big vehicles that are souped up and, tricked out, love these EVs. But it also takes time. Not everyone loves them. People are a little bit, there's range anxiety, there's education needed. And so, that's an opportunity for us to come in, again, with these unconventional partners to get them more immersed in these sort of sustainability decisions and options. Our emergency management department, they deal with getting ready for earthquakes and emergency response, whether that's earthquakes, terrorism, cybersecurity, certainly natural disasters, but thinking about natural disasters in a different way. And so engaging our emergency management department and those men and women on understanding natural disasters from a climate change perspective and their role in building up our resilience, their role in understanding our vulnerabilities and what these disasters and what our threats look like because of climate change. The drought being a great example, extreme heat waves and what that does to the emergency management department, to our fire department. Having them be part of the decision making and development of programs to respond to these threats has really been so gratifying. But it's building out this arsenal of sustainability leaders and sustainability partners where you might not have otherwise thought they'd be. And that's just an example. I mean, even our Bureau of Street Services, the ones that do paving, they take care of our sidewalks, which need a lot of taking care of. And they are leaders nationally on cool pavements and cool surfaces. I probably get more media inquiries and asks to be interviewed about our cool pavement program than anything else we're doing, which I would not have expected. But it is something that LA has really kind of taken the bull by the horns and has said, we need to address the urban heat island effect. Are people familiar with urban heat island effect? So a large urban area tends to be hotter than its surrounding rural areas because of the dark asphalt coverings, cement, buildings emitting heat, cars, all of that. So there's these hot spots that are mostly urban, that are urban centers. And so LA not only is its own hotspot, but we're sort of an archipelago of hotspots. And where we look, we know that these areas that are most affected by the urban heat island effect are low-income neighborhoods because they most likely have the lowest green space and canopy cover and shading. And so, that is a really important area for us to be looking at and bringing in partners like our Bureau of Street Services to help us identify really effective areas to lay down cooler pavements and other parts of the city to help us with tree plantings and applying for grants to the state or other areas to lay down more trees. It's an amazing community that has been built out by the mayor just putting forward a sustainable city plan. In doing so, he directed all departments, all the general managers of all city departments to appoint chief sustainability officers for those departments. So I kind of have my army of CSOs, of departmental CSOs, to work with me on delivering the plan. So that's one part of it. The other part is the non-governmental stakeholders, the urban planners, the architects, the energy efficiency experts and real estate developers, the community activists, the environmental advocates, the business leaders, the entrepreneurs, the scientists, the local universities that give us the research and the data that we need to be able to make decisions around climate change and planning for the future. These are all part of my familia. I mean, we really, really work together in order to develop policies and programs that are good for the economy, are good for the environment, and that really ensure that all communities, especially those that have been, that are most vulnerable and most disadvantaged and perhaps haven't had the attention paid to them in the past, that they really benefit. And that's, we need everyone's perspective to come together in order to do that and set ambitious goals, set attainable goals, and hold ourselves accountable for meeting those goals. And so again, I just see a world of opportunity for all of you to think about what interests you. Are you really interested in communications? Are you really interested in research? Are you interested in teaching? Are you interested in training others to either install solar panels or to move into another field? Are you interested in working with young people? Are you interested in policy development, economics? All of these things. Are you good with numbers? Are you good with visualization? There's so much need and there's so much opportunity, and the community here in the region and internationally is growing. And so that's, I think, what I kind of wanted to leave you all with, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of an overview. And I know that there are lots of people that are here today, before me and after me this afternoon, in specific areas. So ask them about how they came to that decision, what interests them about that particular sector, what are the pros and cons of going into that kind of sector, whether that's consulting or working on a specific technology, teaching, things like that. Really, really probe them, because you may find that there's very specific decision making that went into how they got to where they are now, or they may have fallen into it. And it's, I think, a really enlightening way to kind of think through how you may want to take your next steps and think about what you do after school, what you do after this, after the year in your summer, and so on. And so I think we've got time for some questions. I'm open to anything anyone wants to ask. Any questions? Yes. Way back. Yes, you in the back.
Hey, I'm Alex. Thank you so much for your speech and your timely advice. I'm interested, what kind of inspired your passion for coaching in the first place?
Yeah, so growing up in Los Angeles, I actually in high school started working with a local nonprofit on air pollution. It is called the Coalition for Clean Air. And I got exposed to the Coalition for Clean Air by a high school teacher who taught AP Environmental Science, I think it was. And I kind of fell into that class, not even thinking I'd really be interested in it, but I had room in my schedule and I had to fill it with something. And so I was like, well, it's sort of a science class and I think I'm interested in the sciences, and that's, that was I was a junior in high school, I think. And she was a really passionate teacher, and she brought in a guest speaker from the Coalition for Clean Air, and I kind of talked to him afterward and wanted to learn more. But then in college, by the time I got to college, I knew I wanted to work in the environment. I thought climate change was just learning about what it was. And again, I had a few very, very inspiring professors who became mentors, and mentors not just to me but to a number of students. One person who was a scientist and one person who is an environmental economist, and it just really spoke to me, the type of stuff they were talking about, and I just wasn't shy about getting to know them a little bit more and taking more of their classes. But interestingly enough, I do feel like it was professors and teachers to begin with. And then behind you there was a question too, right? Yeah. Sure, absolutely. So I went to Columbia's as a master's program. It's an MA program in climate and society. Sort of controversial as to whether or not it was an MA or an MS, because it was very heavy sciences, but it was a brand new program. We were the very first year. And so I kind of thought and assumed that I would stay at Stanford for a fifth year and get a master's degree. It's a really common thing for people in my major to do at Stanford. And so I kind of had already started working on that, but as I was looking at classes, I wasn't finding the classes that I thought I would find and that I really wanted to take at Stanford. And I think that that's probably changed because the field is changing dramatically, and it isn't what it was then, which I guess wasn't that long ago, but it feels like a long time ago. And so I looked around a little bit, and Columbia had this new program that, as I was reading about it, really had the types of classes in climate science and international policy that I was interested in. And they were really eager for students because it was a brand new program. So they, I feel very lucky that it was just kind of timing. It was a class of, I think, 12 of us. And half of us were international, half of the class was international, and of all ages, people in their second careers to right out of undergrad. And it was very interdisciplinary, which was similar to my undergraduate degree. So it's a large major. You had to take a ton of classes in order to fulfill the major for undergrad. Very interdisciplinary, all the sciences, all the maths, computer science, econ, policy, and you focus on a track. And so I focused in on environmental economics and energy and anthropology, sort of the social sciences. And so when Columbia came along, this was very similar in that it had a foundation of climate science and sort of thermodynamics and understanding kind of the interaction of climate change with the natural environment and the built environment. And then you really picked from there the rest of, put together the rest of your program through whatever areas you wanted to focus on. And so I focused on international affairs, public policy, things like that. So interdisciplinary, which again, nowadays, there's so many grad programs. And interdisciplinary sort of is the name of the game. But you can absolutely focus on a specific area. That was just kind of the way I did it. Yeah?
Thank you so much for coming out to speak with us and taking the time to do that. It is my understanding that as Chief Sustainability Officer for Los Angeles, you're integral in implementing the Los Angeles Sustainability Plan. And I'm wondering, what are the challenges when working with different groups to implement the different things that you want to see being implemented, and what happens when a group or an industry such as oil and gas doesn't want to work with you guys, and how do you
Right.
go through that?
Right. Well, there's many different parts of my career where you've sort of encountered people that want to put up roadblocks and the great things that you're doing. And what I would say is that a couple things. One, kind of the building relationships with different organizations is so important to have that kind of trust built up, because even when you're potentially not on the same side, and I'm thinking kind of maybe more when I was at Environmental Defense Fund and kind of working more in advocacy, even if you're not on the same side, you sort of have this level of respect with each other. That doesn't always work, but it is really important to try to reach. And even between different environmental advocates, you don't always have the same end goal. And so you have to be really careful about how you collaborate and what kind of relationships and trust that you're building up. In terms of encountering challenges in the city, there's a lot of different challenges that can come up. There's budget challenges and being able to make the case that what you want to do is worth spending the money. That's, when you're in a local government, that's a very, very difficult case to be made. And so sometimes you make the case just based on principle alone. We have committed to doing X, and if we don't do this program, we can't meet that goal. We can't hit our greenhouse gas target or something along those lines. Otherwise, you also have to find what the costs and benefits are, and some of them are monetary, and you can really account for them, but some of them you have to be able to tell the story of how this is benefiting communities, how this is making LA more livable, more attractive, attracting new businesses, and so you have to be able to kind of make those cases on budget and economic grounds. When it comes to our adversaries in the fossil fuel industry, it's really interesting because in some cases they often see the writing on the wall. And Los Angeles was built on oil and gas, literally and figuratively. I mean, we are literally on top of oil and gas wells, and the richness of the city was built on the oil industry. And so being able to move out of that mentality and kind of safely move out of it is a huge challenge. But I find that it's a challenge because of the time that it's taken for us to do it. The oil and gas industry in Los Angeles, they're dwindling. There's still a lot of oil exploration going on, but their focus has tended to be state-level policy. And so that was more of an issue when I was focused on state-level policy. And they bring it. I mean, they bring it to Sacramento. And so, I've got stories. But here, what we're really trying to do is kind of change the face of Los Angeles and show that we are not an oil and gas town, and that we are focused on communities. And there's a lot of communities that are living on top of, alongside, next to, oil derricks, and what can we do to kind of make them have a safer neighborhood? That's a huge challenge as well, because those are active. And so working with the industry, but also working with other partners to change laws, working with city council, those are some of the ways that we're trying to kind of transition out of that history. One more question? Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for coming. Through your experience working with, internationally at the federal level and now
Yeah.
in California, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of working at the state level versus international, especially for San Diego.
It's a really important question. And I would say that question about what level of government should I be working in if I knew personally that I wanted to work in government, that has probably plagued me the most. That's probably one of the biggest questions I've always checked back in on with myself on where's the right place to be most effective. And I would say that it probably changes, and you can probably be effective in any of those places. However, I found that because government changes often in terms of its political leadership, and when we were in an economic downturn, the things that kind of go out the window first are things like environmental programs, right? So you really are trying to kind of have a steady game across all these factors that are happening around you. And so I sort of want to say that the big picture, international and federal, is really the top-down way to go. But I have felt increasingly that where we can demonstrate that it works in California or in a city like Los Angeles or our partners in other cities, where we can demonstrate that we're a very diverse city in terms of our geography, in terms of our economy, in terms of our society, because the Los Angeles and the California economy, extremely diverse. Our landscapes, so diverse. And the diversity of just our people is incredible. And so if we're able to find solutions at that level, they're very replicable and scalable. But this is where the rubber hits the road. We really are able to see, it's so gratifying to be able to see change day by day on the ground in my own neighborhood. It's so exciting. But there's the threat that, sometimes we can only go so far. And if the federal government undermines us or doesn't fund XYZ, then we are limited. And, I work with other cities that, like, for example, Melbourne, Australia. They, just the way their city is set up, have very few autonomous powers. And so when they're looking at what can we do as a city to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, they don't have power over a lot of what needs to happen in the electricity sector, in the transportation sector, in the waste sector, just the way that city is set up. We're really lucky in LA that our charter is set up. We own our own municipal utility. We generate and own our own power. And the transportation system is both local and countywide. And so we have a lot of ability to influence, but that's not the case everywhere you go. And so that kind of partnership is really important, and you have to be aware of focusing on areas where you can make lasting change and what's sort of the most effective, but working with those other partners, if you're not in the federal government, making sure that those needs people are made aware of them, that you're fighting for them. Our mayor goes to Washington, D.C. and Sacramento all the time to represent the needs of Los Angeles, not just on things like immigration and some of these really hot button issues, but also on environment, infrastructure, and things that, public health that affect our everyday lives as well. Is that time? Well, thank you all so much, and good luck with the rest of the day and the rest of the year.